How do you find the greatest common factor? We are going to look at two methods of doing this. The first one utilizes prime factorization, and the second one, you just make a list. So let's start with the first method. Look at some examples. So our first example is going to use the numbers 36 and 54. So we're going to prime factorize this out just like we did with our radicals. So starting with 36, so I know that 6 and 6 go into 36. And you can start anywhere with these. I know that 6 and 6 are not prime, but that they can be made up into 2 and 3. So all my prime factors of 36 are 2, 3, 2, and 3. So I'm going to write that down. So 36 is made up of 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. If you were to multiply these back, you would get it to equal 36. All right, now 54. Well, right off the top of my head, I know 2 goes into 54. So that's going to be 27. 2 is prime, 27 is not. So that's 3 and 9. And 9 is going to be 3 and 3. So 54 is made up of 2 times 3 times 3 times 3. So now we are going to actually figure out what they have in common, what shared factors they have. So we're looking here. I notice they both have a 2 in common. I notice they have a 3 in common, and they have another 3 in common. These are not the same, so they're not in common. So they have 1 2 and 2 3s in common. So the shared factors are 2 times 3 times 3, which means our greatest common factor is going to be whatever 2 times 3 times 3 is, which is 18. So this means that if we were to take both of these, 18 is the biggest number that will divide evenly into both of them. That's what greatest common factor means. All right, let's look at number 2. This time we're going to throw in some variables. So 8x squared y and 24x cubed y. So we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to prime factorize this down. So 8 is 2 and 4. 4 is 2 and 2. Okay? So that means 8x squared y, we can change that into 2 times 2 times 2. Then x would be x times y. There's only one y there. All right, 24, that would be 2 and 12. 6 and 2. 3 and 2. So 24 x cubed y is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times x times x times x times y. So again, we're looking for these shared factors. So we need to see what they have in common. So right off the bat, we can see that they have 1, 2, 3 2's in common. So I'm going to write that down. 2 times 2 times 2. Now they don't have any 3's in common, so then we're going to look at our x's. They have 1, 2 x's. So this x doesn't have 1 in common for the 8, so x times x. And then we have 1 y in common for both monomials, so times y. So our greatest common factor, the number that would divide evenly into both of these, is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, x squared y. So 8 would go into 8 one time, 8 goes into 24 3 times. If we did x squared into x squared, that would go in once. X squared goes into x cubed x times. And notice they have a y in common. So that is our greatest common factor by prime factorization. Now I told you there was another way. The second method is to just list out all the factors. So number 1 on this method, if we were looking at 18 and 27. So what I mean by list out all the factors is what can you multiply together to equal 18? So usually I start at the beginning, start with the number 1. Every number has the factor of 1. So 1 times 18 is 18. Alright, then I start going to 2. Does 2 go into 18? Yes. 2 times 9 is going to give me 18. That's factors of 18. These are factors of 18. Alright, next I'm going to try 3. Does 3 go into 18? Yes. 3 times 6 is 18. Does 4 go evenly in 8 to 18? No, it doesn't. Okay, so 4 is not a factor of 18. 5 does not go evenly into 18. And so the next number that goes evenly into 18 is 6. And if you notice, I already have 6 right here. So notice it kind of makes this U-turn here. 6 times 3 is 18. 7 doesn't work. 8 doesn't work. 9 times 2 goes into 18. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, they don't go into 18. So these 6 numbers are factors of 18. All right, now let's look at 27. So 27 is 1 times 27. 2 doesn't go into 27. 3 does. So that's going to be 3 times 9. Then we're going to look at 4. 4 doesn't go into 27. 5 doesn't go into 27. 6 doesn't go into 27. 7 doesn't go into 27. 8 doesn't. The next number that goes into it is 9. So we've already done this turnaround. So that means there's no more factors of 27. So we can look here and we can see that all the factors they have in common are 1, they have a 3 in common, and they have a 9 in common. Those are all in common, 1, 3, and 9. But we are looking for the greatest one. Okay, so let's write that down. So the ones that are in common are 1, 3, and 9. But we're looking for the biggest, and 9 is the biggest. It is the greatest. Okay, so what this means is our GCF for this problem is going to equal 9. 9 is the biggest number that divides evenly into both of those terms. Okay, so now let's look at another one with our variables. So 15x squared, y squared, 4xy squared. So we're going to start with 15. We're going to kind of ignore the variables for right now. So 15, start with 1. 1 times 15. 2 doesn't go into 15. It's not even. 3 times 5. 4 doesn't go into 15. And notice we got this turnaround. We're back at 5. So that means that's all the factors of 15. Now 4 would be 1 times 4. 2 times 2. And again, notice this turnaround. We're done. Now, factors of x squared would be x times x. Y squared would be y times y. Over here, factors of x is x. Y squared is y times y. So these are all the factors of these two terms. So let's see what they have in common. Okay, well, they have a 1 in common. They don't have a 3, they don't have a 5. That's the only thing those numbers have in common is a 1. Now notice they also have an x in common, and there's 2 y's that they have in common. Okay, so what do they have in common here? Well, they have 1 x, y, and y. That's what they have in common. So that means our greatest common factor is going to be 1 x, y squared, or more commonly just said, xy squared. We leave the 1 off. So that means these don't have anything in common other than 1, but the variables do. And notice we were able to take 1x from both of them. We were able to take 2 y's from both of them. So this is the greatest common factor.